Enough's enough. Let's play hardball. Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews in San Francisco. Leading off tonight, dirtball. I suppose if you really want to get down in the mud, if you really want to show how much dirt you get your hands into, you start calling people spies and traitors. That's if you're desperate and sleazy enough to go after a quiet deputy to Hillary Clinton, someone who can't defend herself. Better yet, you sing out a whole chorus of sleaze with people like John Sununu saying the president himself ought to learn how to be an American, with the Republican candidate himself saying how foreign the president is. Then to put the cherry on the top of this Sunday from hell, you have Michelle Bachmann with some alley-oop help from Glenn Beck do her damnedest and charge that the whole U.S. government, including, according to Beck, John McCain himself, are all part of some crowd taking orders from the Muslim Brotherhood. Do you believe this stuff? Well, tonight we hear the first whistles being blown. Republicans like John McCain and Lindsey Graham, guys who have served this country in uniform, people like Ed Rollins who worked for Ronald Reagan, are standing up to this crazy, un-American talk. God save McCain and say, I say, and all those left, right, and center who say, enough's enough. I'm joined by MSNBC political analyst and editor-at-large of Salon, Joan Walsh, and Republican strategist John Feary. He also joins us tonight. Let me go to Joan. We have John. Who do we got? We have Joan. We only have John. John, how do you explain this cacophony right now that's going on? All this talk about people learning how to be an American. The charges, Sununu's up to this. You've got the candidate himself on your side talking about the president being foreign in his thinking. What's that angle that we're getting? Because Bachmann's sort of the coup de grace. She's the ultimate case of this.
Well, let me first, Chris, disassociate, mix these two things up, or take them apart. Michelle Bachmann's thing, absolutely outrageous. I don't know what she's up to. I think McCain was absolutely right. I mean, you can quibble, you can have some serious disagreements with Obama's foreign policy, but you know, throwing her under the bus, I think, is ridiculous. I think it's as dangerous as John Boehner said. And the worst thing is, it's a distraction from what the campaign should be all about, which should be about the economy. Now, you know, if you're talking about some of the rhetoric coming from Mitt Romney and others, listen, all is fair in love and war when it comes to politics. They're saying the same thing about Mitt Romney. They're calling him un-American. They're calling Stephanie Cutter was calling him a felon. So, you know,
wait a minute. Has anybody questioned his citizenship?
Well, they've questioned, you know, where he's putting all his money. They've questioned his patriotism. They've questioned everything about him. Yeah, they have.
So there's no difference between questioning a guy's tax returns and questioning whether he's an American or not. There's no difference.
There's a difference between the rhetoric of Michelle Bachmann, which is horrible, and the rhetoric of
Let's go on here.
And John Sununu said that he apologized for those comments, and he should apologize because it was wrong to say that.
What did he say? What did John Sununu say? You're saying it's so much different than what Michelle's been saying. He said he ought to learn how to be an American. Now, where does that talk come from?
Which he apologized for. He said he shouldn't have said that, and I agree with John Sununu.
I don't
know why he said it. I don't know why he said it. There's a lot of things people say. Why does the candidate
of the Republican Party say the president's foreign?
Well, I think that he's talking about the fact that the president is trying to import European-style democracy or socialism into America. And that's a policy disagreement. I think that's altogether appropriate to have that discussion.
Okay. Well, I think it all fits together, unfortunately. Here's Ed Rollins, by the way, talking about Michelle Bachmann. He actually ran her campaign for president, most of us remember. Here he is in an op-ed yesterday. He tore into the Congresswoman, calling her charges against Huma Ahmadinejad, who works for Hillary Clinton, outrageous. Here's what he wrote. Having worked for Congresswoman Bachmann's campaign for president, I'm fully aware that she sometimes has difficulty with her facts. But this is downright vicious and reaches the late Senator Joe McCarthy level. As a member of Congress with a seat on the House Intelligence Committee, Mrs. Bachmann, you know better. This is Rollins speaking. Shame on you, Michelle. That's what he's saying. You should stand on the floor of the House and apologize to Huma Ahmadinejad and to Secretary Clinton and to the millions of hardworking, loyal Muslim Americans for your wild and unsubstantiated charge. Other Republicans, by the way, also called for Bachmann's charges to be withdrawn. They called them outrageous, including Senator Lindsey Graham and Scott Brown of Massachusetts. Today, by the way, the Speaker of the House, John Boehner, was asked about it. Here's what the Speaker said.
I don't know Huma. But from everything that I do know of her, she has a sterling character. And I think accusations like this being thrown around are pretty dangerous.
Well, you might get the idea, Joan, if you're somebody like Michelle Bachmann with her intellect, you might get the idea this is okay because you hear the other guys throwing this stuff around. So you go a little further, but in kind. I disagree with John. I think it's in kind with what we're getting from these other characters. Your thoughts?
Well, let me just start by saying Michelle Bachmann is Joe McCarthy in lipstick, and she's a dangerous American. And I want to start by welcoming John to a zone of decency where Senator John McCain took us and Ed Rollins is taking us. And Chris, the rhetoric in this country right now is so dangerous that I think it's important to acknowledge that they have now staked out a lunatic fringe. They've now said certain kinds of comments are beyond the pale. That's a good thing, and we should applaud that today. And you know that however is coming.
Well, here's something. By the way, I like Fury a lot. I know what he has to do sometimes, defend the indefensible. But in this case, he's saying the right thing. Michelle Bachmann is off the rails. By the way, here she is finding someone who agreed with her. She was on Today with Glenn Beck.
Oh, yes.
Beck defended the Congresswoman and attacked John McCain, who he said is marching to the orders of the Muslim Brotherhood. That's John McCain being accused of that this time, John. You got to keep up with your crowd. They're a little frisky out there. You got to keep up with them. Let's listen to Glenn and Michelle.
John McCain and all of the elephant media are falling right in line with the Muslim Brotherhood.
Well, Michelle Bachmann continued her dangerous and totally unsubstantiated allegations against Hillary Clinton's aide. Listen to her.
She is the chief aide to the Secretary of State. And we quoted from a document, and this has been well reported all across Arab media, that her late father, who's now deceased, was a part of the Muslim Brotherhood. Her brother was a part of the Muslim Brotherhood, and her mother was a part of what's called the Muslim Sisterhood.
I think that documents something from, well, let's just say the irascible Frank Gaffney. Anyway, there is absolutely no evidence that her relatives were ever members of the Muslim Brotherhood. But why let facts get in the way of your story? She also makes this ridiculous claim about the infiltration of the Muslim Brotherhood into the U.S. government. Let's listen to that one.
The influence today of the Muslim Brotherhood at the highest levels, from the White House to the Pentagon to the FBI, even to our United States military, truly is breathless, and people have to know about it.
Well, I could call this a parallel universe in John Fury, but it's, of course, part of the far right, not your right, but it's out there. How do you separate this kind of stuff from the mainstream Republican conservatism?
Well, Michelle, I was talking to several members of Congress about this today, and you know, members of Congress look at Michelle Bachmann and they think
there's four other guys in this besides her.
Yeah, but we're just talking about Michelle Bachmann. She's really pushing the story because there's some other good guys in part of that letter, but they're wrong on this. I think that you have to be really, really careful on these types of attacks, and that language she's using is so eerily paralleled to what Joe McCarthy said. And you just got to be, you got to know your history, and you cannot make these accusations without some real hard proof, and to demonize someone like Uma, I think is a huge mistake.
Well, Joan and I were talking at dinner the other night. I mean, I think I brought this up. You can't turn on an American television show, a sitcom, if you will, without at least one of the characters, young characters, being from background from South Asia and the Middle East. It's sort of part of our culture now. Right. And now to single out people, not in a happy way of welcoming them to our culture, but to single them out as dangerous, the way this character has done, this Congresswoman, and I think Ed Rollins has a point. This is something that has to be addressed on the floor of the House. She has to come out and say, I take this back. Anyway, the Romney campaign got into. So you have any thoughts on that, Joe, since I brought it up with you? I got another point to bring up here.
Well, yes, I do think they need to denounce it on the floor of the House, and I don't agree with John. I don't know who he's referring to, but Trent Franks, who signed the letter, he's a birther. Louis Gohmert is crazy. I mean, there are some crazy people, Lynn Westmoreland, who are joining her. So it's not, it's easy because she is a little bit kind of a crackpot, I said it, to demonize her, but she's got some company. And I also think that this works because the president has Muslim family members, step family members, and that this is a part of a code about this president, about Huma Abedin, who's a wonderful, loyal, civil American servant, that really needs to be denounced. But it only is possible, I agree with you, Chris, it's really only possible because the mainstream of the party thinks it's fine to demonize our president president as un-American.
I still think Michelle's a special case. I agree with him on.
She is.
We had Michelle on this show, Congresswoman Bachmann. It's probably where she really made her bones politically. She came on this show and said we have to have an investigation by the U.S. government into the members of Congress who are un-American. And it's an incredible. She runs in a strange part of the world. Anyway, the Romney campaign committed a major distortion. By the way, we'll get back to the candidate here to make the president sound anti-business. Take a look at this ad. I think it's misleading. Everybody watch, and then we'll watch the real thing it was taken from.
If you've been successful, you didn't get there on your own. You didn't get there on your own. I'm always struck by people who think, well, it must be because I was just so smart. There are a lot of smart people out there. It must be because I worked harder than everybody else. Let me tell you something. If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Well, let's look at this. Let's take a look at the actual president's statement here. Let's take a look at this, the president's statement.
If you were successful, somebody along the line gave you some help. There was a great teacher somewhere in your life. Somebody helped to create this unbelievable American system that we had that allowed you to thrive. Somebody invested in roads and bridges. If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
John Ferry, the way I heard that, he's talking about the bridges and the roads. You didn't build that. He didn't say you didn't build your own business. He said that. And then the next sentence says someone else made that happen. That, not your business. The reference is clear. And that commercial makes it look like he's saying, oh, you didn't build your business. Somebody else did. He's talking about the roads and the infrastructure without which you can't make a business work. That's all he's saying. Your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that the president made a lot of those comments, all those comments that were quoted in the ad. But the big thing is, it's not about the ads, Chris.
Is the ad accurate?
The ad is accurate enough. Far more accurate than most of the Obama
come
ads,
on,
which
you're
are
standard. This is pathetic. This is flackery. John, this is flackery. This isn't the truth. You couldn't take a lie detector test on what you just said.
Can I make this one point?
No, not if you're going to make that point again. This ad's a distortion.
Let me make this point. The point is this, Chris. The ads don't matter. The economy is what matters, and the president has done nothing for the economy. And you know that.
That's a pretty good argument. I know Joan says it's not about the dishonesty of the Romney campaign. Go ahead, your side.
It's about the economy, which the stimulus did bring back from the brink. You cannot say that this president has done nothing for the economy, John. That's just not true. And there is a fundamental point in the ad and in the president's speech that we need to debate going up to November, and that is the Democratic vision that we had help getting into the middle class. My family did. Chris's family did. Your family did, John. We built roads. We educated people. We had a commitment to public universities. We had the GI Bill. Government created the middle class. And now Republicans are acting like if you got there, you did it all by yourself. That's just not true.
Joan, I'm from Chicago. Listen, the government did just as much to take away from hard working class families than they did to help build roads. And there's a lot of corruption in a lot of government that people are rebelling about, and they're sick and tired of it.
Okay, all I can tell you is I wouldn't have gone to college when I went to if I didn't get government loans from the National Defense Education Act. I got a full fellowship for the National Defense Education Act as well. If these acts didn't go through, I wouldn't be educated. I wouldn't be here. So I know that part. But I did work, too. I agree with that part,
and
too.
We're all
I think we all worked. Okay, thank you, Joan. John, I know when you know you're wrong, your voice gets real high. Anyway, have a nice weekend.